the response. So we got active. And then I'm quite upset that there hasn't been, people haven't taken straight or come to the
So if you want to talk.
Yeah, Damon. Hello. Hello, Damon. Come in, Damon. Yeah, have you unmuted? He knows how to do it. Hello. Anybody got any questions while we try and find Damon?
Hello.
Hi, Damon.
All right. Oh, video as well, is it? Hey.
You what? Hello, just a few people here. We've just done the intro and the film, so we're just waiting for any questions from the audience. Everybody, can you all see Damon? There he is. Yeah. So that was really well received. So anybody got anything they would like to ask?
I
Right.
think you need to.
Damon, I'm going to have to. Did you hear that question?
Nothing at all.
Right. Oh, okay. Right. Okay. So we have a question coming in. It's kind of like talk radio. This.
You're a great presenter. I'll stick with it. I can think.
We've got a question. How long have you been doing this practice? How long have you been subvertising, Dr. D'ing?
For probably just over 23 years, about 24 years.
Yeah. And how? Okay. Sorry. How did you, first of all, quickly, how did you get into that?
I've worked in the fly posting business since about 1995. So we quite often in fly posting would just steal billboards for clubs, nightclubs or music releases, that sort of thing. So yeah, when you get used to liberating corporate space, it kind of fed into what I did next more creatively, you kind of got the hang of nicking or stealing space.
Okay, cool. Question from the back there. Okay, we've got a question saying, can you remember the first piece that you actually did that would be subvertiser Dr. D?
Yeah, I think I was playing around with images and just for laughs while you'd fly post something, you'd stick something over there. But the first one that really I sort of put my name on was the Microsoft billboard where it said suddenly everything clicks, and I took the SU from suddenly and stuck it over a different billboard, and so it became suddenly everything sucks. And yeah, that was a Microsoft send up.
Susan Hanson has a question.
Susan Hanson, who's that?
So I was not inspired related references, not anything wrong. Films like British in its reference and expired. In terms of the international audience, expired the diamonds were lifetime zero and taxable context. On international, still more than international.
Okay, well, yeah, that was quite long. So Susan's asking that the film, and obviously a lot of your work is targeted towards British politics, British situations, British sociology, and so likewise the film also has that. And have we had any kind of sticking points within that, which, in any people abroad seeing it or not necessarily understanding it? So in a word, actually, to be fair, that's actually more of a question to the audience here, really, isn't it? You know, if where,
Oh, hello.
where,
Hello. Good to see you.
I mean, from your point of view as an audience, where did you see that fitting? Did it make sense, the references that we had?
In a real day, like, or if 28 Tories died, that I didn't know, like.
Oh, okay. We're getting some feedback from America, is it? Ish.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, we're just getting a bit of feedback that some of the references were, not necessarily transferable. I mean, how do you feel about that with your work? Does your work seem to transfer to international audiences?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, you're totally right. It's very, it's quite niche, sort of, even, most English people don't get it. So, it doesn't travel amazingly well. I've been talking to someone asked me to submit some to an Italian poster sort of civic event, and I was just trying to get. I do these other sort of thing. I don't know if you can see the one behind me, which is a bit more. It's a bit more. Can you see that?
Yeah, we've got it. Yeah.
I do posters like that as well, and that's kind of a bit more world view. And I was trying to get an Italian to translate a poster I did called "Verify You Are a Human." And I think if you see that in poster form rather than on a computer, you can you kind of get the joke a little bit. But trying to translate that just into Italian seemed to be really problematic. It just didn't come across the same. So yeah, I'm quite
Okay, yeah, because that's
in that respect.
You're fluent in Italian, aren't you?
Yeah.
Anybody else got a question? Sorry, yeah.
Dan, some you're doing things great. I'm wondering the size of it, the placement of it, it all implies you're interested in reaching a broader audience. So just to pick up on Susan's question, do you find that is one of your goals to sort of educate people, make them think in a different way? Do you think that you're being successful? In other words, not communicating across, say, international lines, but communicating across, say, political lines in the UK. Is that the goal, and do you feel that you're doing that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think that the question is, are you trying with the art and the placement and the size and the billboards and the small pieces, are you trying to change people's opinion, influence them? And I think that was the basics of it.
Yeah, it's good question. Thank you very much. It's a weird one, really, isn't it? It's like, why do you make anything? It's really at the core of it, it's for my own sort of mental health / amusement. And then it kind of, it keeps you going, rather, because otherwise you're just a subject, aren't you, of all the orders that are coming at you in the world. And it's like fuck you, I can have a go back, it's very small, it's like a David and Goliath sort of situation, but I don't think I'll ever take out the Goliath with a slingshot. But if I can the thing I do is try and make it funny. So if it can make me laugh, rather than being like, I've said this before, you can't just say fuck the Tories, because it just doesn't, it doesn't really get you anywhere. But if you can get inside somebody's head, I think comedy is a real, is a real key to getting into people's heads. You know, if you can make someone laugh and get the point across at the same time, you kind of can possibly influence someone. But you know, maybe the biggest influence I could make is someone else going on and doing something more than what I've done, if you see what I mean. That's, you know, that's the best I can hope for, I think, in whatever field they're in.
So what was the second half of your question, Susan? Hanson. No, there's no, she doesn't want to know. There was only that part of it.
Then Hanson, Cambridge.
Sorry. Anybody got any further questions? Yes. Okay, yeah. Do you work by yourself, or do you have people that help you out, like a team, or is it mainly just?
Yeah, there's no money in what I do, so yeah, it's occasionally I'll drag a friend into it for a laugh if I need someone to maybe take a photo or do a little bit of film. But generally speaking, it's much easier to just do things by yourself, just for speed. You know, if you're trying to fit in what you're doing whilst you're doing a day job as well, you know, it's kind of, I mean, my day job does sometimes, you know, does involve putting posters up sometimes as well. So yeah, but the film was a collaboration in terms of Ollie and Jimmy helping me with the I don't know, the imagery, the and the text that have gone on those posters. It was a real unusual collaboration making the film. So yeah, props to Ollie and Jimmy for pushing me through that and coming up with some, I think they were some of the best posters I've ever done.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly from my point of view, that was something I did touch on the introduction, that this was more than just making the film. It was actually a full-on Dr. D production as well, because it actually ended up going up to Manchester as well. So it existed in its own right, as apart from it just being staged for the film, really, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I think we're done. Yeah. Pedro?
Yeah. Yes, Susan. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. All right. Cheers, Damon. I will catch you.
All right. Thanks, Ollie. Obrigado, Pedro.
Cheers.
And if you need an ad campaign for the next show, then you know where to come.
Okay. All right. Cheers. See you,
Hey, thanks, Ollie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lots of love. Cheers, Suze.
Then she's coming around.
Oh God, there's so many computers.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry it's so late and it's the graveyard start. I'm going to stick to 15 minutes. I promise.
So you'll share your stuff here.
Yeah. Oh.
Need to do something here on this side. Sorry.
There's two of me.
Yeah.
Are my slides here, Pedro? Yeah, I can find them now.
You can find them now.
No, you know where they are.
It's the same. Here and.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Yeah,
Is yours?
go straight to slideshow. I got it. Cool. All right, and get rid of all
The screenshots and stuff. And these one also.
hi to everybody on Zoom. It's nice to have you virtually here. If you're still actually there, please do chime in on the chat or say hi if you like. Okay, so this is the original title for this paper. But as with many papers, well, we all know that when we write an abstract and we haven't actually done any of the analysis yet, what you end up with can be something a little different. So this paper did morph a bit during the analysis, and I decided in the end to retrospectively account
for this shift in focus with reference to Pedro's numbers theme, which turned out to be a handy way to kind of make sense of my confusion. So it's still about the popular reception of cut and run, but with more of a focus on method. Okay, so where are the... I love a Portuguese computer. There we go. Okay, so as we know, academic papers in full usually take a crazy long time to get out in the world. I've only actually had this data for a couple of weeks. So this is very much a work in progress. So less than 2 weeks ago, I was lucky enough to get to visit Banksy's Cut and Run exhibition up in Glasgow very shortly after it opened. This, of course, is Banksy's first solo exhibition since 2009 in Bristol. Frustratingly, there was a no phones or photos policy. And so you had to put your mobile phone inside this kind of lead bag, which you could hang around your neck, but it was locked. So effectively, I mean, I'm a compulsive documenter of all kinds of things, and I really, really, really wanted to take photographs, but it forced me to just experience the exhibition, which was actually kind of nice, and I would never have had that experience otherwise. So this is the only visual I came away with. I don't know whether you can tell what it is. So the only thing that they will do, the attendants have Polaroid cameras, really shitty Polaroid cameras, and we'll take one photograph of you in situ. So that's my back looking up at some work from the 2009 show, the creepy policeman rocking on the little rocking horse, which is macabre and fascinating. Okay, so arrows. Okay, so there are some very few interior shots available in the Banksy team's press kit and online. So you can see pre-prepared shots of some of the rooms from the exhibition. There are no photos that I can find of the wall that sparked the focus of this paper. So in the first room of the exhibition, when you walk in, the facing wall features a series of blown up screen grabs of negative, do I need a microphone? Negative online reader comments, which are really dismissive and really quite rude about Banksy's work, and which characterize it as vandalism and as not art. This is a kind of a tongue-in-cheek meta-nod to the age-old public discourses that continue to position Banksy and graffiti in general as vandalism. This works here as a form of humorous self-deprecation and acknowledges the continued force of this public rhetoric. And apparently Glasgow City Council spends more on buffing its walls than any other city in the UK. Yeah, so that's a kind of a unique positioning. I just saw my daughter actually yawn. So further elements of this once dominant graffiti as vandalism discourse are also strategically drawn on by the press statement given by Banksy's team here, with stencils being positioned here as potentially incriminating evidence. So this show was based around reworking and presenting some of the stencils at the heart of Banksy's practice for the first time in public as art, rather than something hidden away somewhere in the archives as something that could put him in prison. So this vandalism rhetoric is kind of drawn upon strategically here, and also in the wall quotes inside the museum itself. Yeah, so here Banksy uses a three-part list and reference to the graffiti as vandalism discourse to position himself within, then unsettle himself from the category of most artists. Yeah. So this whole idea that while most artists have a legitimate obsession that defines their work, he has police response time. And a three-part list is quite effective here. Okay, so here's the boring part. I used unique reader comments as my data here, as my primary data. For once I was steering away from visual data. By reader comments, what I mean is the kinds of comments people type after having read an online newspaper article. In this case, these were reviews of Banksy's Cut and Run published within a week of the show opening from both tabloid and broadsheet sources within the UK, including Scottish sources and, you know, sort of more London-based sources as well, to allow for the expression of both local and national community opinion. I have used reader comments as a source of data before to analyse the reception of Banksy's 2009 show at the Bristol Museum, and again in 2018 to analyse public attitudes towards the theft of his work from city walls for private sale. So on at least 2 occasions, I've drawn on reader comments as they're a kind of ecologically valid source of qualitative data and a real-time index of community attitudes. Yeah, so you can tell how people are reacting in real time to stuff in the world without having to go out and interview them or run focus groups or get people to fill out questionnaires. It's a self-collecting corpus of qualitative textual data. So, although I have used this approach before in terms of collecting a corpus of reader comments on newspaper articles to do with Banksy's work in particular, this prior work relied primarily on methods of analysis designed to map the frequency of the thematic patterns in this data. So here you see the numbers link, Pedro. Despite being a trained conversation analyst, I was at this point in time approaching this data source as a collection of isolated individual opinions and not as an ongoing discussion. Yeah, so this thematic approach reflects how the comments appear if you download them as one chunky transcript for analysis. It gets rid of a lot of detail. But on critical reflection, some years later, this is not how the comment section is experienced if you're actually contributing to this discussion. Yeah, you are contributing in real time. You're responding both to the original article, perhaps to the images within it, and to other people's comments. It's a real-time, multi-party conversation where people contest other people's positions or validate other people's positions or draw attention to things within the review that they agree with or disagree with. So I have changed my mind about how to analyse data like this, and instead of taking a thematic approach where comments are extracted from their original interactional context, I would prefer strongly to take a discursive or conversation analytic approach, which shows us these comments in interactional context, revealing such social actions as resistance, argumentation, trolling, solidarity, and so on. This method is also more powerful, I guess, in that it can be polytextual, by which I mean it can take account of the role of images in articles and people's reactions to particular images. So in the following analysis, which I'm going to do in 6.5 minutes, I'm going to have a go at demonstrating what we can do with thematic analysis, how that isn't quite enough, and what additional unique insights we can offer through a more interactional analysis that isn't so clumsy and numerical. So if we were to run a standard thematic analysis on this corpus of 500 reader comments, we would find a bunch of both positive and negative themes, which would sort these comments into superordinate and subordinate thematic groups, such as these, which are in very tiny text. I hope you can read them. We would then support each main theme and sub-theme with indicative quotes from the corpus. So here under the top negative theme for vandalism, and indicative quotes may include Banksy should be arrested and jailed for criminal damage, or graffiti is like permanent litter, it smacks of disorder, and the slum, I loathe it. Yeah. I mean, looking at these 2 indicative quotes, you know, we can get a sense of how we might then break that down to 2 different kind of sub-themes of vandalism. One more to do with criminal damage and punishment, and the other more to do with a Mary Douglas kind of approach to graffiti as matter out of place, as something kind of gross and abject. So there's a bunch of other things here that I'm not going to go through in detail because I really want to cut to the chase. Amongst the negative themes, some of them are quite mild, you know, so Banksy's kind of a bad artist. This isn't high art, it's not proper art, it's politically woke. Then we move towards the more negative, you know, this is criminal damage, this is gross and like litter or wee on the street. And then the most negative of the negative themes is to do with Banksy's work as being, in some sense, morally offensive. Yeah, so the indicative quote here is absolutely disgusting. What is wrong with the world? Yeah. So whilst vandalism relates more to process, these set of comments characterizing Banksy's work as morally offensive tend to be focused on the content of particular works that people find to be positively problematic. Okay, I'm going to skip the positive things. We're just going to focus on the negative stuff so we can stick to time. They're much more interesting than the positives. So for the remainder of this speedy paper, I want to focus on just one theme, and this is the morally offensive theme I just mentioned. This is the most negative theme that I can find in my very quick and dirty initial thematic analysis. In doing so, I want to drill down to focus on one sub-theme of this main theme, and this is a sub-theme to do with homophobia. Yeah. So here are a bunch of comments from this category. Here they are listed in the order in which they appear in the transcript. So when you download this as data, this is the order in which these appear, if you're to pull them out and cluster them in chronological order. And you can see from looking at these quotes express aversion, disgust, and repulsion. So they're fairly strong expressions of homophobic prejudice. They're fairly unambiguous that, like saying something makes you sick or that something is disgusting is, fairly up there. It's not a modern form of prejudice. This is really horrid. Okay, so here's what we can do with numbers. Here is that initial list, which is in the order of appearance chronologically, reordered helpfully, with reference to the ratings given by viewers themselves. So you can put a little thumbs up on stuff, a bit like social media. If there's a comment, you're like, yeah, man, I'm also grossly offended by this photo. What a disturbed world we live in. So this is rated from most to least popular, and the numbers here are pretty scary high. These are all Daily Mail, this particular collection. So we have 53,000 readers who actually do think this particular work by Banksy is grossly offensive and that the world is disturbing. It's really saddening that the most nakedly homophobic comments appear to be the highest rated comments. Although it should be noted that these numbers also reflect how recent posts are. Older posts are more likely to have more likes and reactions, but I cut this after a week. So there's no super old posts that have accumulated lots over time. Okay, so next slide. Here's the positive and multivalence ones. One of the things you're supposed to do when you're developing more nuanced themes, rather than going, here's the positives and here's the negatives, is a process called polarization. This basically involves a search, if you're looking at a negative theme, for some positive aspect or angle expressed in some of the comments that can give some depth to this theme. So here is a much smaller set of comments that are more positive, or at least multivalent, so somewhere between positive and negative. But some of these seem focused on other targets. Yeah, so not gay folk, but the police as authority figures and the so-called woke brigade. Here these are again, reordered by popularity. Encouragingly, some of these apparently positive comments do get quite high ratings, but they're nowhere near as high as those for the negative core of the sub-theme. So we don't have 53,000 ratings for the top one here. We have 6,000. So thematic analysis, as we can see by that very quick thematic analysis, gives us a picture of this segment of community opinion, but without reference to the crucial visual prompt that sparked these comments. And it's possibly quite frustrating, though most of you know this work. So it's essentially decontextualized from its source. So this, of course, as you will all know, is the image source provoking this sea of homophobia. Many of the tabloid reviews of Cut and Run featured Banksy's 2004 Kissing Coppers as this kind of provocative starting image. Thus, the comments in my morally offensive sub-theme reflect readers' reactions to this visual prompt. So this is kind of a naturalistic form of photo elicitation. And in fact, Kissing Coppers has always reliably elicited divided responses, either reacting to the work as queer or as a mockery of authority figures. So people get pissed off on a number of fronts with this work. It was originally painted in Brighton, blah, 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 and was subject to repeated defacement, as a lot of queer-focused work often is subjected to more violent forms of defacement, more regular forms of defacement than other works. So it was removed and replaced with a replica. So in the following 90 seconds, I want to recontextualize the comments we've just thematically analysed within the interactional framework provided by discourse and conversation analysis. So here, back to the comments. This is also the title of the paper. I kind of love-hated this comment so much, but here it is in isolation as it appears in our thematic corpus. But if we view this as part of a conversation in response to this image in particular, then it represents part of a larger dialogic whole. And a key question for conversation analysis is what happens next? This person just didn't fire this comment out in the ether. There, you know, it's part of a conversation. So what happens next is that another reader responds by positioning the first reader as a closeted homophobe. So here we see a level of resistance to homophobic commentary, albeit via categorization of the reader as a closeted homosexual. So they're using this category in a derogatory fashion to effect an insult. Here's another example. This is one of many that evokes a strong negative response. So here we have grossly offended and disturbed world. But again, we see a critical response, which is encouraging. This time, this response is focused on the police as flawed authority figures, guilty of far more serious and offensive acts. So this comment works to minimize and dismiss the original comment. And then the third comment again employs the category of the closet case. This is an instance of a trolling strategy in that it responds with what appears intended as an individual insult, but this really goes further than our first closet example by implying that the writer secretly wishes he was kissing another man. Here's another example of a strong negative comment based on disgust, pretty simply expressed, very simple response. This is initially dismissed as a sign of classic repression, which is, of course, a variation, I guess, on the closeted homophobe category, which is buttressed by an expression of faux concern that operates to infantilize and dismiss the original commenter. Oh, poor baby. So this milder negative comment, this is somewhere in the kind of middle of the negatives, expresses a distaste for kissing coppers, a refusal to support its subject of, men kissing, and so on. And I'm going to skip to that. This is a very confusing response. I think this is in reference to the practice kissing many of us engaged in as teenagers, where it was socially acceptable to engage in same-sex kissing so long as you were standing in or a surrogate for an imagined opposite sex partner. Yeah, all right, you be the girl. No, it's your turn. I think that's what that's about. And this is using the next to improve procedure. You can see that the third commenter here validates this reading of the kiss as gross by the claim that one of the officers featured is making a face of repugnancy. This is a claim that is hard to argue with as it is grounded in an apparently empirical observation. Yeah, so this kind of reading of the work as intended to be humiliating to the police rather than as a positive depiction of same-sex kissing is reflected in the next comment. I've got 2 comments to go. I'm very nearly there. See, police farce here, very Dr. D rather than police force, just changing one letter to provide a negative assessment of the police, to which someone concurs. And the third one is an interjector who expresses their offence in a manner that positions the work as disgusting and as offensive to the police as people in uniform who represent an organisation. Third comment's just fucking with them. Okay, shortest negative comment ever. It's one word. Hi, the negative response is also met with an infantilizing comment similar to that seen earlier, the oh, you poor baby, doesn't take too much to upset you. It just dismisses the commenter at the outset and positions them as precious and as overreacting. So, according to our thematic analysis, which was quite clumsy, this comment here should be categorized as highly positive, yeah, because we put it in the positive theme group. But to me, it also seems a little troll flavored. Yeah, so this is a post that might be maliciously designed to provoke outraged responses. So we can use the next to improve procedure to see how others interpreted and reacted to this comment. So am I right? Are we right? Is it kind of trolly? And yeah, it seemed to work. So note here that the third comment is by the same person who gave the first provocative comment about the passion of the police, in that they playfully encourage commenter number 2 to reframe their disgust reaction as an emotional response elicited by the art, and thus as a mark of the skill of the artist. Why is your hand up, Heather? You want me to stop, don't you? I'm very nearly finished. What? Right now, Mommy's on a roll. You can tell me that later. This comment, by contrast, I love your question, Ella, we'll get to it after this. Feels more authentically positive. It's got an exclamation mark. It's more enthusiastic. It's a more straightforward, positive assessment. Let's see if we're right. Yet this positive reading is met with some resistance here via the classic response that LGBT+ people have a right to live their own lives, so long as straight people aren't being forced to watch. Here, the third commenter's response draws attention to the fine distinction between seeing and looking by pointing out the commenter's volitional control over the objects of their visual attention, i.e. there's no agent forcing him to look, and the speaker must thus lack in basic self-control. So this example made me super excited, as there is an uncanny parallel here with my earlier analysis of disputes over the buffing of same-sex marriage murals, where again, we find the distinction between modes of visual apprehension can be used as a flexible rhetorical resource. And here is this data. I'm going to play you like 5 seconds and then I'm pretty much done, just so that you can, oh gosh. Oh, Pedro, this is, oh, I just finished by accident. Yeah, good. Okay, I can finish by accident. I won't play the data. I'll just show you the slide, but it's an Australian voice. It's so nice. I'm trying to fast forward it to 15. There we go. So smooth. I hate this computer. Oh, Pedro, I've just terminated. Okay, so that's the conclusion. Basically, they use the same thing. They say, if you don't want to look at it, you know, don't come here. If you don't want to see it, don't look at it. So looking is within our control, seeing is not. The conclusion is that a numerical approach can be very useful, but is limited. They work to decontextualize, separate, don't worry about it, and objectify the object of interest from its original interactional and temporal situ. Whereas an interactional form of analysis demonstrates the additional insights we can glean from a more fine-grained dialogic lens. Interactional forms of analysis, I would argue, also mesh with our shared focus of interest in permanently unfinished cultural ecosystems, as Lachlan McDowell calls it. It's temporarily unfolding environments on the streets that we're wanting to unpack. I think we need forms of analysis that mesh with that ethically and practically undone.
I'm joking if someone wants to make some questions or.
I mean, I think we could also do this like at the next venue, because we're now running so behind. And I've just talked way too much to them.
Maybe from online, if someone.
Online people don't get.
7 people there that can know. If not, we see tomorrow.
Okay.
We see each other.
Thanks for giving me that extra 4.5.
Bye
Bye, online people.
Bye-bye.
Shoot.
And we unplug that one?
Yeah.
Just come out, yeah?
Yeah. Bye, Peter. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Stay well.